to our event celebrating Pride at the British Museum. We are Sim and Kelly from this year's Youth Collective, and we're really thrilled to welcome you to our event Get Ready With Me, starring Hot Rod. We're incredibly excited to have Hot Rod performing here tonight. They are a drag king based in London who began performing a year ago in Man Up.
We were keen to include a drag event tonight in line with our exploration of masks. In a way, we believe that drag, and gender more widely, can often be a performance where we constantly negotiate and present and express ourselves in the world.
Social media has become more prevalent in our lives and heightens our awareness of self-image. As a result, it can lead to people's identities being placed in a small box without having room for personal expression. Yet we feel that drag can break this mould. It offers a creative outlet which pushes past the conformity of gender labels. Most importantly, it can be highly therapeutic for people who get involved and later develop into a passion that fosters self-compassion and empowerment.
For the purpose of time management, Hot Rod has come partially in drag, with most of his makeup completed backstage. However, for the duration of his performance, he will explore his creative process by getting ready with us and sharing how and why he decides to express himself in drag.
There will be time to ask Hot Rod any questions you have after the performance. Please keep all questions respectful and sensitive to the safe space we have created in the museum today.
Without any further ado, we'd like to invite Hot Rod to the stage.
Hello, everyone. Hi. So I'm Hot Rod. It's pretty obvious how I got this name. I'm hot. I'm handsome. I'm kind of intimidatingly good looking. I'm the kind of man that people fall in love with. People in this room. But when you look this handsome, it's really difficult. A lot of the time, people focus on your appearance and not on your art. And you know, I'm an artist, I'm a poet, I'm a songwriter, and I just want people to see that part of me. I really God, sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm sorry. I thought I saw my therapist in the audience. That was ever so weird. Look, I've been lying to you. That intro was a bit, sorry, it wasn't very classy. I've been lying to you, and what's worse is I'm lying to myself. I'm not this handsome, confident man who's full of himself. No, I'm just a shy, anxious lad from Gloucestershire. And I don't really do art. I work in an office, you know? And guys, back home, nobody even calls me Rod. It's Rodney. But I never feel comfortable coming up on stage and talking to you fancy folks at the British Museum as Rodney. So I thought I'd create this alter ego, this confident version of myself. I hope that's all right. Yeah. Okay, fine, right. One last lie. I am quite clearly a drag king, and I'm so thankful to the Youth Collective for inviting me here tonight. I'm just going to get ready with you and share a little bit about why I became a drag king and who my character is. Thank you. So, oh, this is very fancy. So as I put on my beard, I want to share a little bit about what a drag king is and why I became a drag king. And then also why I chose kind of my beard as the thing to finish off in my look. And I just wanted to quickly ask, how many people in the audience have seen a drag king before? Oh, amazing. I'm thrilled, because that is often not the case when it comes to drag. Drag queens, as many of you clearly will know, are kind of often platformed and are the main thing that you see in the drag space. Thing is not a very nice term. And so drag kings, I guess it's really great that the British Museum have invited me here to share a little bit about that part of the drag scene. I'm going to be trying to chat whilst also applying a beard, which I will admit I've never done before. So let's see how that goes. Yeah, so I chose a beard because for me, this is kind of a way that I present the masculinity of my character. I like to have a beard, and when I have my beard on my face, I feel ready to perform. It's also like I guess, a very visible masculine trait. So something that, that really brings that kind of masculinity to the performance. Drag kings, like this isn't, a beard isn't something, or facial hair isn't something that all drag performers or all drag kings will choose to have. But I think it is possibly one of the elements of the drag outfit that most kings do have and do stick to. When I start the beard, it looks like I'm simply drawing on my face, but it will get more detailed and more impressive as we go. Yeah, so the great thing I think about drag kings is that we have slightly fewer rules when it comes to how we perform and how we express ourselves. Lots of kings and drag things will choose, as I said, to use things like facial hair to express masculinity, but others won't. Lots of us choose to bind our breasts as a way to kind of create a more masculine silhouette, but lots of us don't. Lots of us will wear fairly traditional clothing that is perceived as male or masculine, so things like suits. Waistcoat, I guess, for me, is kind of the mask part of my look, but the rest of what I'm wearing is, I don't know, free of gender. So yeah, to me, the beard is kind of a special thing that gets me ready to perform. I started, as the Youth Collective mentioned, my first drag performance was at a competition called Man Up. So at the moment, London in particular, but actually the whole of the UK has a really thriving drag king scene, and I'm so thrilled that lots and lots of you have seen drag kings perform before. London, for those of you who live here, we're lucky enough to have competitions like Man Up that platform lots and lots of different kings and drag things and folks expressing masculinity through drag in some way. But there's also like lots of major cities in the UK have a really exciting drag scene. And I think it's impossible to talk about drag without mentioning RuPaul's Drag Race, sadly. But for anyone who has watched the show or knows about the show, there has yet to be a drag king presented on the show, which means drag kings have a lot less visibility in the scene. It means that we make a lot less money in the scene. I guess where the TV provides fame and platforming for people, it also brings lots of money, which is brilliant, and it's great for those performers. But unfortunately, drag kings are kind of the only part now of the drag scene that haven't been on that TV show. However, that gives us a lot of freedom to express ourselves in really exciting ways, free from kind of television producers' guidance or preferences. So there's a really wild and eclectic and exciting drag scene for kings and things at the moment. I don't know, yeah. So for anyone who's interested in the makeup element of this talk, I like to start with kind of a base layer of kind of brown color, and then I will add detailing and texture to my beard by drawing on kind of individual lines, just in case anyone's interested in that part. Sorry. So for me, I decided to start exploring drag during lockdown, which I think is quite a familiar story for lots of drag artists. That time was obviously difficult in lots of ways, but it gave people, I guess, time to think a little bit about a gender expression or how we want to express ourselves. And also time to explore hobbies that sometimes office work and life can move to the side. So for me, I've always loved to sing. It's something that I have done like in my personal life forever. But I have never felt the confidence to sing on stage until I started performing in drag. Similarly, I used to love as a child creating weird and wonderful makeup looks and things. But because I don't necessarily wear makeup out of drag, this is like a fun way to do something creative that I've enjoyed. Drag is also, drag has given me the confidence to start performing beyond the drag space now. So earlier this year, I started performing stand-up for the first time, which is something I'd really wanted to do when I first moved to London many years ago, but I didn't have the confidence for. So something about Hot Rod and his confidence, his absolute belief in himself, has passed on to me. Well, I guess I am him, but has like really given me that sense that I can do these things. And so I guess that's a part of drag that I think the Youth Collective and Ashley were keen for me to get across, that kind of emboldening, that confidence that this characterization or this alter ego can give me, can give anyone who chooses to do drag. So it sort of transfers into all aspects of my life. It's allowed me to perform in different spaces and in different ways, and out of drag in my given name rather than as Hot Rod. So that has been really like wonderful and empowering, I would say. Another thing that I think is the case for a lot of drag performers is that drag has allowed me to explore and feel more comfortable and confident in my gender identity. I think for lots of us, getting to celebrate that masculine or male aspect of our identity and realizing that that's brilliant and special and a part of who we are is a really brilliant thing, and it's something that has kind of helped me understand my gender and to kind of feel more comfortable and confident in that. Sorry, it is relatively hard to focus on this whilst talking. Sorry, everyone. Again, for anyone who's interested in the makeup, I like to kind of, like a human beard, I like to think about where the hairline would go, so to try and make my jaw a little bit squarer and a little bit more traditionally masculine, but also to sort of give it that impression of being hair. I believe beards start lower down, yeah. So it's kind of a way to create a masculine silhouette and face shape, but it's also that kind of, what's the word? It's some like really simple visual clues of masculinity or maleness. For me, so as I very briefly introduced at the beginning, my drag character is kind of, he is an alter ego in himself. So Hot Rod is a confident and, I don't know what the word is. I was going to say, no, that's not a good word. He has a real confidence in how attractive he is and how much people would want to spend time with him because of how attractive he is. So that has been good for kind of building my own self-confidence and thinking about like comfort in my body and in my appearance and in who I am as a person. But then also we have Rodney, who is this sort of the other side of him. He's the kind of shy, anxious Gloucestershire lad. So that is me, that is where I'm from, and it's kind of allowing me to celebrate and give space on stage to that, like some of those potentially difficult anxiety or like mental health related aspects of my identity. So I love having both of those characters to play with, to be brash and like a bit rude and a bit, yeah, full of himself, and then also to be sensitive and vulnerable, and to show that masculinity doesn't have to be toxic. Drag kinging doesn't have to be bringing out only some harmful or stereotypical aspects of masculinity, but it can also be beautiful and tender and soft and emotional, just like people of all genders. So as you can see, I'm now kind of drawing on individual hairs at pace to give the impression of kind of hair, I guess. And while it might not look quite as effective on a giant screen, I'm not sure, on stage, I think this does kind of create, the two colours creates depth and the sense of hairs. Now I'm going to, shortly, I'm going to change into a slightly different look. It's inspired by, well, I guess it's Rodney. It's inspired by Rodney. So that country guy. So having grown up in a rural area, I think potentially this idea that the Youth Collective brought up of masks is even more overt, because there were certainly in the 90s and noughties few to none, in fact none, kind of LGBT services or groups or spaces available to me as a young rural person. So hiding that part of myself felt like the only way to be. And certainly moving to cities and moving to London creates more of that, and drag in particular has created a lot of community and like safe spaces to be myself. But as a rural lad, I guess I really like expressing Rodney's rural background, his countryside kind of experiences, and kind of both as a way to celebrate that part of myself, but also as a shout out to other rural queers who probably had quite similar experiences. Lots of the time, when I do an act that's got a rural theme, I do get people saying like, oh, I haven't seen much rural stuff, so this is great. Whether that's content about cows or, you know, whatever. So the look that I'm going to get into behind this really fancy screen is part of that. It's Rodney's, it's an expression of his countryside heritage, which therefore means I'm, for anyone, like, I don't know how much you can pick this up on screen, but I've gone for a green eyeshadow look. Ooh. And I'm just going to add, to go with this rural theme, I'm just going to add some depth to my beard with this kind of green eyeliner. To give you the impression of grass, I suppose. Having grown up somewhere surrounded by grass and cows. I don't know, it's sort of like a love letter, I think, Rodney, to that part of my identity and my where I grew up. I am obviously rushing, so I could do a really neat job normally. I guess, yeah, it seems like this is a crowd that knows lots, like lots of you have seen drag kings perform, so that's brilliant. But I guess it's worth mentioning that drag kinging, or male impersonation and masculine performance, has a really rich history in the UK, like through music hall, through pantomime, etc. So despite what some TV shows would suggest, there are lots of us out there, and we're doing really exciting, kind of fun work. Doop-a-doo. Okay. That's neat enough. I'm just going to quickly move behind the screen to change into my other outfit. There is a mic there so that I can keep you entertained, but we'll see, because that might be too distracting. Oh, does that pick up? Yeah, great. So yeah, this look, as I said, is inspired by the place that I'm from. It's also, oh my, it's also inspired by a event at the British Museum last week as part of the Stonehenge exhibition. So thank you, British Museum. You inspired a really quick outfit. Sorry. And it's also inspired, I suppose, by the fact that we've just had Midsummer, so we are lucky enough to have lots of long nights. So what better than to celebrate that through drag? Oops-a-daisy. Here we go. So this is my little. This is my. Thanks. I don't know if the mic. Wait, if I do this, would it? Hello. Yeah. So this kind of look is inspired by Morris Dance, by Green Men, by Midsummer, and by a really lovely late that was here last week. So thank you so much. that's the bit, and I think there's a Q&A maybe now?
So I'm also from a rural area, so I've never really had much experience with drag or queer culture in general. But if I wanted to start watching drag or going out to see drag, where would I do that in London? And what sort of what's the polite thing to do? You know, etiquette. That's the word. Etiquette for watching drag shows and the like.
So I would recommend, there are drag shows on in London every week. One of my favourite venues when you're new to drag is the Royal Vauxhall Tavern. So that has some whoops, yeah. I guess the reason I like that as a venue is because it's really inclusive and it has lots of drag shows that are celebrating, for example, drag kings, or celebrating drag performers of colour, celebrating like lots of different, especially platforming lots and lots of trans and non-binary artists. So that's a really good place to go and kind of explore. And it's also somewhere that will definitely welcome you. Like, I've talked to folks who are in their first ever gay bar, and it's very welcoming. I would just recommend having a look online. There's a platform called OutSavvy that lists loads and loads of queer events and queer spaces. Yeah, and then I would just say see what you like. Yeah. There's someone at the back. Sorry, I'm not used to.
Maybe I can jump.
Yeah.
I was just wondering, how do you feel bringing Rodney to the streets, like off the stage, in the day-to-day sort of? Just like walking down the street, and I don't know, when you're not performing on stage, but in a day-to-day capacity.
Sorry, I should move this back down now, shouldn't I? Sorry. So I don't tend to wear drag outside of performance, but certainly more and more of clothes that were for drag have become my day-to-day clothes. So I guess there's becoming a blurring of who is Rodney and who is Ruth, and I quite like that. I think a real privilege, well, it's not necessarily a privilege, it's a reflection of, I feel pretty safe traveling around in male and mask drag in a way that I know lots of drag queens don't feel safe traveling in femme drag, and I suppose that probably reflects something about misogyny in society, because I feel cool and powerful as I travel on the tube in drag. However, it's more faff. I probably only don't do it because it takes a long time to get ready.
I'm really interested in the different types of makeup you use to apply different layers of your beard. Would you be able to talk through that, please?
Of course. Sorry, I wasn't sure who would be and who wouldn't be interested in the makeup. I start with my beard. To sculpt the shape of my face and to make my face slightly more square. I mean, I've already got a great jawbone, but to kind of bring that masculine shape out, I use a kind of contour, first of all, so a darker, a darker shade of my foundation. And then to add beard layer, it's just an eyeshadow palette, and I use the color that's closest to my hair color as the base. And I kind of cover that. I try and do it as fairly fluid lines that looks like fluffy, I guess. And then I use different shades of eyeliner to draw on those, to draw on the individual lines of the beard. And also for my eyebrows, I don't know if they're still on properly. So I use, again, similarly kind of shades that I would use that match my hair color as much as possible. There are so many different ways that kings do it. Some people seem to use like a Sharpie and just draw it on, which shame on them. Lots of people use wig, like glue on lace front wig beards, so very similar to a hair wig, but for beards. But I find that too irritating and unpleasant on my skin. So for me, I find that drawing on these lines is the most effective way that I can do it. I also find it quite mindful and relaxing, so that's nice.
So with your own performance specifically, with your comedy as well, you do the stand-up. So is your performance like strictly more like singing that you mentioned, or do you do more comedy style stuff as well?
So my main act, I hope the mic is fine at this point. My main act is a fake album launch. So I have written a number of songs. They didn't meet the British Museum appropriate test. One of them that I can tell you the title of is called Everybody Wants Me for My Body. That one is probably just about okay. So they are all, I've written them on GarageBand, and I used to do that before I did drag. Again, like hobbies that I hadn't really, given space to. So that's the main act that I do. It's kind of a mix of these short original songs and stand-up. That's the main thing I do. I do also do some acts. So because I'm lucky enough to have a full-time job and drag isn't my main thing, I can also I've had lots of freedom to create acts that are like personally meaningful to me, I suppose. So I have an act about gay shame, which mixes a bit of lip sync and live vocals. And then I also do a piece about abuse that is kind of all dance / lip sync. So a variety, but I feel most happy when I'm talking or singing. Thank you.
I want to ask that when you were younger, how didn't you know that nobody was gonna bully you or say mean things to you? Because I would be very scared about that, because if they did it to me, I would feel very sad. But how did you have the confidence that nobody was going to do it to you or anything?
That's a great question. I think when I was little, when I was at school, I didn't have that confidence. And I was 35, so it was just over a year ago. I was that old, so like really old, when I first started performing. So for me, that confidence took a really long time. But also, I think at school, I did still write a lot of songs. And when I was 11, I did go by the name Colin for a whole year. So I think I've always been a bit like silly and a bit, yeah, I've been silly, but I didn't feel comfortable talking to my friends at school about being gay or wanting to be a drag king, but I did subtly do it. But hopefully people, I think now, like lots of schools are a lot more welcoming and open, so I see lots and lots of drag performers who are like 18, 19, and I think that is so amazing to have that much confidence, like at such a young age, so that's a nice place to be. Thank you.
Sorry, just wanted to say, we would love to hear you sing.
Honestly, I don't think I can because they're quite rude. But you can, yeah, I can't, I'm so sorry. Yeah, good question, yeah. So if you have a look, if you're interested, if you use Instagram, then you can find me on Instagram at hotrod_drag. You will, whenever I perform, there are lots of stories that will have, you will get to hear some of the songs. And when is my next performance? I'm on holiday next week. So after that, I'm performing at a place called the Albany, which is quite nearby, near Warren Street. And I will be singing at that one. But I would say mainly look out on Instagram for, they are quite ridiculous songs, and they're certainly not appropriate for this nice audience. Sorry, Ashley. Okay, I think that's the time.